Hello, everyone. I'm just going live, so I know it's going to take a little bit of time for everybody to start coming on. I'm expecting probably a couple of my usual subscribers that come in here, um, and hopefully more of you saw my post. Um, in the last few days, I've been talking to my subscribers, and saying, and getting ideas on different topics. I've also been watching other YouTube channels, and actually, today's topic was something I've been watching a lot of other authors or um, YouTube channels have, and it's when I've been watching their channels, it's been very, very something I am going through at this time. Um, it basically, what I am going to talk about, obviously, you'll see it in the title. We are going to talk about a journey through what is called a high demand religion. Um, so I'm not going to go through the whole thing today. I plan to do this in a series. I do, today kind of want to introduce, excuse me, so I want to see if this is my daughter had texted recently. Oh no, this is just email. I'm sorry. Well, like I was saying, I'm going to do a series of videos, kind of, explaining what I've gone through. So, there'll be positives, negatives, and we'll go through that. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Jules. Um, I am a 53-year-old transgender woman. And whenever you visit my channel or any of my live streams, you are one of my treasures. And as you can see in parentheses, we do this say Area 5T1. That's what I've decided to nickname this area here in my channel. 51's always been a very significant number to me, and you can see I really have a lot of alien stuff here in my house. I like to decorate with alien stuff. You can see I have, planet Saturn here, and then I've got a moon, and then I've got a little flying saucer off to the other end. I have an alien head. So it's just a decor I picked up. I did just move from another state here to New Mexico. So I just thought it would be appropriate since, the whole Roswell thing. So to begin, like I was saying, I do want to talk about high demand religions or high demand religion that I have been in. I'm in the process of resigning. I just have to write my letter and send it. Hopefully I can start getting some of you in here right now. But if other people watch this later on, I think it'll be a good way to, learn a little bit about it. Basically, I grew up in the Catholic Church. I did grow up going to Catholic school, and eventually transferred out and went to public school. Later, in life, and I would say my teens, I started, noticing that there were other, beliefs out there, other churches, Christian churches and stuff like that. And I kind of, when I started going to college and seeing more classes, ooh, I know I got a thumbs up. Who's out there with me? Welcome to my channel. You're here with Jules on Jules Treasures. I was just starting my little live stream today. I do want to talk about like I was saying, high demand religions. So like I said, I did go to Catholic school, but when I got older in my teens, I started really, when I started studying science, um, and when I got into college, I, started reading. Uh, I went through one humanities class where we actually read the Bible just like a textbook, and I think that had me question a lot of things. Oh no, no, that's fine. That's cool, Lena. I was just kind of starting myself. I think we're only 5 minutes in, so like I was saying, Lena, I was in college when I had to read the Bible just as a textbook, and when my humanities teacher was explaining it, it was funny how it did. There's certain things that were kind of scientific, uh, and then you start learning, going through an anthropology class because for your requirements, and sure enough, it makes you question things more. So I kind of faded in any type of faith that I had. I was just, you know, um, being me, and having fun with my friends, going, taking my classes, stuff like that. Um, Later in my 20s, I started going to nursing school, and I took a swim coaching job, and actually, um, the I was one of the assistant coaches, um, and the head coach had been one of my coaches in high school. When I was um, coaching, I was living on my own. My parents had moved out of the country for a while. At that time, I was still living with them. So I had their house, and there was a family on the swim team that one night I was just gonna go home, and they said, "Oh, do you want to go to this function at our church?" And I did, and I um, I went to this function. Actually, it was kind of amazing that a lot of the people I knew more people there than they did. So it was it was um, it was kind of cool because a lot of my high school friends were attending, and one of the things they did was throw film on. I remember, and they were talking about uh, Steve Young being a member of the church, and so obviously when it came up, it was that Steve Young was actually like the great great grandson of one of the founders of the church, and right when you hear Young, you can obviously pick up on which church it was. It is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Um, Steve Young was, I believe, the great great grandson of Brigham Young, which BYU, the Mormon University, or Latter-day Saint University, the most popular one in Utah. Um, it is, and so he played football for them, and he's a very famous football player. So obviously, they always try to highlight things like that. I noticed that, but and then seeing people that I knew, like I said, friends from high school, even my high school guidance counselor was a very high official in the church. Um, they have different, affiliations to, where you land in the church. Just like if you look at the Catholic Church, yeah, you have your pastor, but you also have bishops, and they kind of align it in a similar way, but like a bishop will just be like the local leader, and then you have a stake president that watches over several what they call wards, and so it's got its own like governing body. So the stake president is high up there because he watches over like 10 wards, and um, so when I started noticing this, I was kind of drawn into it, and one night my friend was going to have her. It was that night she was having her kids, you know, talk to the missionaries, and um, and missionaries, you may, I don't know, you may have them. I don't know if you've ever had them knock on your door. There's two people that'll knock on your door, two different faiths. Will be the Jehovah's Witnesses, and the others will be the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Usually, the way you can tell them apart is if they're Latter-day Saints, they will be in white shirts and ties, usually in suits. Most of them will carry backpacks because they have to carry books, and they will always have a name tag on him. It says, the guys go by elder. The sisters sister missionaries are the females, and they will always have a name tag. They'll be wearing a blouse, usually long skirts. The church has recently changed policy where they're allowing them to wear pants. Yes, the church was very misogynistic at one time and wanted, everything to apart. So yes, I'm drinking my iced tea. Not an Arnold Palmer, but this is totally against church policy. We'll get into that way later on into the series. So, as my friend was talking with the elders, yes, I'm being a rebel. So, as I was getting, some elders approached me at this event, and they asked me, "So, what's your name?" And I give them my name, and they'll, "Well, would you like to read a Book of Mormon?" And I said, "Sure." And they highlighted some sections that they wanted me to read, and they're all, "Would you like to discuss this with us?" And I'm like, "Sure, okay." Well, this is kind of funny because here's some tactics I'm going to say they come up with, and I'll look up even more. There's many more versed people that have grown up in the church, gone on missions, and could probably tell you some of the tactics that they use a little more that are no longer members. And you can watch their channels; they're great. I love them all, and I watch their videos daily. There's like at least 4 different ones I watch, or 5. So I'm sorry, I just keep getting these emails. So they said, "Okay, we'll come visit you. We're gonna and we'll talk to you." And I'm like, "I'm sure." I was kind of on my own. I was going to school, and so then my friend says to me one day, she's all, "I'm gonna have the kids baptized, and the missionaries are gonna come and do a lesson." She's all, "Can you come over?" In and I think it had to do with the fact that they were elders, that they were guys, and obviously it was her. It was a woman, and obviously at that time I hadn't transitioned yet. So she had me over because they can't have male missionaries go to a woman's house if her husband's not there, and her husband was out on ship because he was in the Navy, and so I went over there, and sure enough, I show up, and the missionaries were there, but there were 3. No, at that time it was only 2. 2 beautiful knockout young women, and I was like, my jaw dropped to the floor, and I was like, "Oh wow!" And so we took a lesson with them. They did a Bible lesson, or Bible/Book of Mormon lesson about the church. Kind of taught a little bit about it and the history of it, and then they said they were going to do another one next week, and then the next week was a longer one, and they basically, in that one, they asked two of the young ladies. My friend had four kids, and they asked two of her daughters to get baptized, because they do baptism at age 8, because they call it the age of accountability. They say you can't baptize a baby or anybody younger because you don't know if you're doing right or wrong. So 8 is that age where they say you can be accountable. So basically, they turned around and looked at me and they go, "Would you like to get baptized?" And I'm like, "Well, sure." I kind of just nonchalantly said it. And that night, we were there for a couple hours. We had dinner, we were talking. I started kind of picking up on their conversation, and it was funny because at that time I was in nursing school. I had a little, um, we had a little study group, and one of the other girls in my study group was also a member of the church. And I remember going to the next study group, and when we were there, and I go to the study group, and I picked up on that dinner that there's one day a week where the missionaries kind of have a day off, and I say kind of because I've learned a lot more. And they said um, that they have kind of a day off, and what they do is um, kind of do their grocery shopping, their laundry and all that. So when I went to my friend's study group, I'm like, okay, you need to tell me this. I got a question for you. I said I started taking missionary lessons. I said, and I'm like, there was these gorgeous knockouts that came to teach me, and like I said, and I know they get one day a week off, to do things. I'm like, can they date? And so she tells me, no, no, they can't, Jules. Um, and then her next question to me was at that time, which uh, obviously I hadn't come out, but she looks at me and she goes, "Anyway, Jules, how do you plan on joining the church if you're gay?" And I looked at her, I'm like, and at that time, like I said, I hadn't come out. And I said, "I'm not." And she goes, "Oh." So it's funny, I was already reflecting, showing some that was part of the LGBTQI family. So I found it, now that I go back and reflect on all this, this is where I think I find little pieces of the puzzle that's led to where I am today. So, and that'll go back into other parts of the series where I'll talk about their very anti-LGBTQIA, and a lot of things that at that time I did back in California against when they had I would believe it was Prop 8 that they had to pass, and the church really backed it up, and it was to keep marriages man and woman. So to continue, I think the missionaries did notice some hesitation in my voice. So later on, they came to my place. My friend came and we did a lesson there. I had prepped dinner, and they had just brought in a third one, and um, so they were, like I said, they were all gorgeous, and that was like probably my first attraction. I think that was bringing me towards the church, but I think for that was the wrong reason. But there was some before that lesson. I had some temptations the night before. I was tearing down the pool where I was coaching. Another one of my swim team moms came. I think she was having trouble at home with her husband, and then sure enough, she says, "You want to go get a drink?" And so yeah, we went and had a few drinks at the bar. Came back to my place, and things started leading from one thing to another. When I started feeling a little uncomfortable, I stopped and said, I can't, especially because also it had to do with my the fact that it would be like a conflict of interest. So after, and then she left, and the next day the missionaries are teaching me a lesson, and they start with a little, kind of like this, almost like a steno pad like I have here, and it stood up and it says, in the Bible they have given us commandments, and they stand it up like this on my table, and the first one that pops up, it says it's commandment number 7, which says, "Thou shalt not commit adultery." And I was like thinking about what I had done the night before, and yes, sure enough, I was messing with a married woman. And then they're all, oh, well, God has revealed other commandments to us. And one of them, it's what they call the Lord's Law of Health in the church. And basically, it's what they consider like a health plan, and certain things not to eat, or certain things not to do. And like one's not using tobacco products, so no smoking, no chewing tobacco, which is kind of funny. Once I can get a copy, or I can pull it up online, or I can even download an app on my phone. When you look at they call the Lord's Law of Health, it says that tobacco can be used as a healing herb, because when you do put tobacco on your wounds, it'll heal them much quicker. Um, and the other thing they say is no coffee or tea. Um, and that took me a while to grasp, because I wasn't sure. At first, I thought it was the caffeine. Then I started getting a lot of different explanations. And we'll delve deep into that when I do a video just on what they call the word of wisdom. Um, and so I did go on to get baptized, because I felt that was kind of a little uh, something telling me you need to do something different. Um, but I think I may have ignored other signals, like the fact that I wanted to date the missionaries before even agreeing to baptize myself. So then I go to get baptized, and the day that came around, the font broke. So we couldn't get baptized at the church. And they redid the whole plan, and they said, okay, we're all going over to the bishop's house. You're going to get baptized in their pool. Well, sure enough, I was getting baptized with 2 of my swimmers on the same day. I asked the gentleman that baptized me I met him at the swimming pool and taught him how to swim, swim better. And he says his workouts became better. So he liked the fact. So that's just basically a summary of how I got into this church. And then as you go along, there's many things that you don't learn in the first discussions. At that time, there were 6 discussions. I think now they're down to 4. And they ask you to get baptized in the very first one. And they do some post-baptism discussions, but you don't realize how much more complex a church is until you become a member. Little by little, I'm probably going to break down certain things about it through the video series that I want to do on it, just because it was amazing that, a lot of things I saw. They always said they wouldn't get involved in politics. Well, sure enough, I did see them get involved. Um, you know, they make you, one of the promises you make before you get baptized is to give 10% of your income. That's before taxes to the church, so they can, I guess use in their programs. Come to find out, a couple of years ago, they found out the church is worth $250 billion. So, there's a lot to it. But that's kind of a little introduction to my, like, how I came into it. I will probably give more detail on that story later on. Um, so I don't know, Lena, if you have any questions at this time. Hopefully, we can get some more people coming in here. Um, Hopefully, the title saying high demand religions will maybe get some of these people that have left church, looking at my video, who's I always watch theirs. Lena, is it you that watches Cults of Consciousness that you told me? Because she was a member herself. And there's another guy I watch. His channel is called Mormon Stories, and he was actually excommunicated from the church. I really admire his. Yeah, she does a great job. If you ever want to watch, and she's been interviewed by this guy that I was just talking about, and he does a channel called Mormon Stories, and his name is John DeLynn. He does a great job of breaking things down. And when he started um, questioning things, he went to his, and his leaders found out. Um, he actually got excommunicated. Um, Me, I kind of just like tapered out little by little. So yeah, they've noticed. Yeah, and missionaries used to come around my house. Um, yes, he's excellent. Yeah, he's really good, and yeah, he really does a great job of breaking everything down. He was actually excommunicated from the church, but I love his channel. I try to watch at least one or two of his videos a day, but they're long. They're about art, like as long as our live streams, about 2 hours. I've seen some of his videos go about three. Um, so I know, and there's a lot more. You probably, since you've watched some of their videos, you you probably heard about in depth about some of the things that I've came to learn about the church when you go to when you go to the temple. That's a It's supposed to be very sacred, but oh boy, once you find out and you go in there, and there's a certain point where you can go, and then they say, oh, if you don't want to do this, you can leave. But once they do that and you don't leave, then you have to go through the rest of the ritual. Oh my goodness, at certain points looks so culty. That is something I want to do later on in one of my videos. I'm actually probably going to do a series of 4 videos, and I know each and every one of them have done it and use what they call the bite model to look at a religion and to see if it is a cult or not. And I mean, before even seeing any of these videos, or before, like he explains a lot, before the internet got big, there were some things I saw that were kind of, it makes you question certain things, um, and why you're there. Some It's just me and you right now, Lena. Hello, welcome to the stream. You're on with Jules. Just kind of gave a little breakdown of my history going into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and little by little, we're going to talk about high demand religions and how to know they are. Today, we're just kind of getting like an introduction. Like I said, I gave a little story behind my way as I got in. Um, I was brought in by a friend, but slowly but surely, I've been tapering out of it. Now I just need to write my letter of resignation, send that to Salt Lake, um, have it notarized and sent straight to Salt Lake. I'm going to skip the middleman. Okay. Um, I know, I mean, I've seen templates for letters. Yes, Lena, it is very, very difficult. This is why it would be considered a high demand religion, uh, or, um, or, and then, when you start watching some stuff, if you watch through certain things on the internet, and when I do some videos, I will get pictures of them. Certain of the rituals, you'll see that it is very cultish. Um, and a lot of people do with the bite model prove that it is one. Um, but like I said, I'm gonna take and do my own breakdown on my experience with it, and we'll see where it lands. In my opinion, and that way I'm not just like going off of everybody else's. Um, One thing is though, they are notorious for finding you like that when you move. For example, I've only been here for 6 months, and I got one knock on my door. Now they didn't ask for me by name, and I think that I had COVID at the time, because then I didn't. I told them, "Oh, I've been sick," um, and they're all, "Oh, do you want a blessing or a prayer?" And of course, they would have changed it into a blessing at that time. I know what they would have done, kind of a bait and switch, um, kind of what they did with sending the female missionaries way back when. Um, they they say that a lot of times with like males, which I was at that time, um, they'll send female missionaries, and you obviously have to have a female friend there that can watch over things, or they'll bring someone that it's not, that might be a ward missionary, as they call them, and they call that tactic the flirt to convert. Um, Hence, like I said, I was very attracted to one of them, um, and actually, my friend thinks that one of them was attracted to me. And like 2 weeks later, it was her last. She left her the mission field because, well, she was done with her mission. Her 18 months were due, and like a week later, she showed up to her house in plain clothes. Just so it was kind of funny. So they called me over to go and visit them, or she, her uh, and my friend. It was funny because she called me back. She's all, "What do you think?" She's all, "Someone's here to visit you." So that was kind of a funny story right there in itself. But actually, I remember within a month receiving a, a invitation to her, or not an invitation, but a wedding announcement. The weddings happen in the temple, and to get people into to someone's wedding in the temple, which is very difficult, because you have to have a special uh, hall pass basically to get in. There's special, uh, like if you went to Disney and you get the fast pass, that's basically, or you know, you get a special ticket to get in. It's called a temple recommend, and you have to go through a special interview to get the temple recommend. And you can only have so many amount of people at your wedding, and they all have to be temple recommend holders. So it is very, very high demand. So like me, had if I had gotten married, say in my first marriage, in the temple right away, my parents wouldn't have been able to go and watch the wedding, which is in itself is a very different ceremony, which we will talk about in my little series that I do. I don't plan to make my series like a. I just want to do several short. I want to do some videos on it, um, but I do want to talk about some of these rituals because I think it'll show that it is high demand. Um, like I said, I was Catholic growing up. Um, One of the major things was like in Catholicism, a lot of people will always say it's like a Sunday thing. You kind of go on Sunday, you go do your thing throughout the week, and boom. With, for example, in Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints or the Mormon Church, whatever I refer to as, I'll keep saying the Mormon Church, which they don't like anymore, using that term. Um, when I got into it, I got called, and a calling is like being appointed to a position, um, and it was well, it was in the young men's presidency, so I had to help, you know, and take attendance. That's basically what it was, and um, and um, it. So I had to go every when they wanted your week to consist of. Okay, Mondays, family home evening. So that's a little gathering you have with your family, do scripture study, any type of church game, whatever. Wednesday nights, what they call mutual. Mutual consists of, you know, young men, young women going to the church. Um, you do like a little prayer time with them together. Where, like that's why I call it mutual. Then young men go off and do Boy Scouts and learn other things. Young women go and learn like homemaking things. Um, then they may have an activity like Friday nights, like a word activity. And then Sunday is when I was still going, it's consisted of a 3 hour block of your day. And if you're even, and if you're like like in the presidency of any like activity leader, like whether young men, young women's, Relief Society, anything like that, on Sunday, you have to go early in the morning to a meeting where you discuss the concerns about the members of your group. I'm sorry, I just keep getting all these messages like everybody wants, but none of them have been texts. All of them are like emails. I do have a package coming soon. I don't know if it's showed today or tomorrow. It is a new haul, a couple of new dresses, so that'll be fun. We can do it on the because there are a couple of different styles. Oh yeah, Lena, trust me, it was a lot of dedication. Like, um, and you know, for example, and sometimes you work, and then on Sundays, sometimes when you went to church, one of the formats I liked, one of the things I will say that was positive about it was that every Sunday was pretty much different in how things were. Um, in my little overview of things, one of the big things was like, for example, always an opening prayer. Then they would do what they call the sacrament. That's where they bless the bread and the water, and it's handed out. Um, and then they have three different speakers, and it could be anybody in the congregation. They usually call you ahead of time in the week, and they give you a topic, a biblical topic, or something having to do with the scriptures. Then they have you do your talk. And so what I like about that, and all three may have the same topic, but they have different amounts of time, increments of time. And what I like about that is that it may be the same topic, but you're going to get it from different points of view. Um, of course, then you're talking sometimes from 100 to 500 people you're in front of. So it depends how you do up on stage. It can be kind of nerve wracking. Um, well, because one of the things I felt like when you go on Sundays to church in the Catholic Church, and you can still go now, it just kind of repeats itself, the same process. They just, you know, and it's the same people reading the Bible up there. It's the same priest and everything. So it was, at least there you got different faces on the pulpit. Um, now there, um, the thing that caught my attention was was it either the first or second service I went to. That's the first time I actually saw something that looked almost cultish. Um, I sit down with my friend, and we were sitting there, and all of a sudden I noticed that after the bishop or one of his counselors had talked for a little bit, that's what they call, like I said, they call the leader is the bishop, has a first counselor and a second counselor. It's kind of like a first vice president and a second vice president. So one of those three they sit up at the front of the church, and one of the three will come up and do their little spiel and kind of give what they call their testimony. That's how they feel they found the church and how what they believe about it, and how they testify about it. Then they welcome members to give them, which is here's where all of a sudden when I went to, that branch was growing so much that you saw like 20 people just go up there, and one at a time people would get up there and bear their testimony. And when I started watching this, it was kind of scary because people would get up and it almost seemed like what they were saying was like programmed in a way. You know, they would like they would all go up, and the first words out of their mouth would be like, "Hello, I'd like to bear my testimony. I know this church is true. Um, I know, and they would say, I know that God lives, and that we have a true prophet here on the earth, and they would, just and then kind of give some of them give examples or tell little like life story, kind of little life lesson that they had in the past week or so, or like some kind of miracle thing that happened to them, and then they would end it in Jesus Christ, amen, amen, in Jesus' name, amen. And I'm like, but when you hear like 20 people say the same narrative, just a little bit of a different way, it almost seemed very programmed. So I was like, even my friend who had grown up in the church, she's all, this might have been the wrong one to bring you for your, I think it was my first sacrament meeting. She's all, I think that might have been the wrong one to bring you to. Because, oh my goodness, was it like I said, it did sound very programmed because everybody kept saying the same words. And eventually that's how they want you to be, to where you have your testimony, how it comes about, but you have to phrase it in those, basically using those words, not 100% to those words, but in that manner, which is, it was, now that you look back on that I look back on it, it's just, I'm surprised I didn't that I went back. Um, but it just, um, it's one of those things. I think I just needed something. There was a void in my life then, but I guess I didn't find the right one. Uh, and it was, and it's taken a long time to research everything. And I was a member for like over 20 years, I can say. And um, like I said, I've seen many things that are very, very different, and it'll take probably, my series will probably be several videos long. And I hope, many people can, just like how I talk about my transition and how I hope to help people, I hope that people will just be able to analyze any group that they belong to and see if it is a kind of a high demand religion type of thing, or or even like a cult type of group. Um, because not only is it a faith or a religion that can be high demand, sometimes people get into certain businesses, which are, and they basically break down into like cult type patterns. Um, for example, there's many people that'll join MLM, and they all they want to do is build up that downline. And and that's almost what this was. In fact, I was watching. No, Lena, that's not wrong. You were right, spot on with that, because in time I did find myself going up there from time to time and talking those words. So um it is programming. Um they just, every class, when your teacher, like, for example, every talk, say I was giving the talk in, if I gave a talk in church, I would give my talk about whatever topic they gave me. I made sure to include some scriptures. And then at the end, I would end it. You would have to end it. Well, yes, I wanted to say that I have a testimony of church. I know this church is true. I know that God lives. In Jesus' name, amen. So yes, it's programmed into you to do it in every prayer, every talk, um, after each and every class. If you're teaching it, you're saying those. You're basically saying those words. So basically, you are programmed to say these things. It, and I can look at it now from having been an outsider coming in, and then having been in the church for a while, and then now an outsider, again, that yes, back then when I started going in, I know it was see the programming going in, but now I can see it leaving. It was definitely programming. Um, if you were ever to go to a testimony meeting, you wouldn't believe it. I was, when I look back at certain things, I get flabbergasted. You get taught a certain way to dress. Your Sunday best. I mean, I remember the first time I just went in a nice shirt, whatever. Eventually, boom, white shirt and tie, nice slacks. Once I was in the presidency to something, boom, a suit. Now, if I were to go now, of course, now I would wear a nice blouse and a long black skirt. Not that they, require black skirts, but if it's a nice long skirt that I would get, is it would be a nice long black one. And certain people had, certain clothes that there was their Sunday clothes for just about every week. You'd almost see them come back in the same outfits, or they would like rotate them. It's a it was a very big eye opener over time, and in the past few years, it I've opened my eyes a lot. And now that I've been watching more of these, like I said, more of these other YouTube channels about people that have left or been made to leave the church, is just really, really eye opening. I'm finding, like I said, I was in the temple and saw rituals that um, I couldn't believe how they were, because they were supposed to be such a sacred thing. Then now I'm finding out about others that I didn't even know about, and they're supposed to be sacred, but many of the things that happen in there are secret because they tell you not to tell anyone. They program you to say, do not tell anyone what goes on in here. You get, in the temple, you get given a new name. If you're a woman and you get a new name, you can only tell your husband the new name, but he cannot tell you yours. It's a very misogynistic faith too. Yes, it can, Lena. It is very, it can get dangerous. If you knew and studied, there was a while I was in the church, and I started playing with the internet from the very origins of it. And I remember once I found the World Wide Web and really started, going in there. This is how programmed I was, to a certain extent. Um, I started looking up the history of the church. There are many things in church history that were hidden, but on the internet, there were things I started to find eventually. Um, for example, I found out, in fact, that when I came and took a class here in New Mexico, I even got it confirmed by one of my teachers. Um, it was, um, they hide a lot of things from their history. Um, there, there's one story about a guy that had committed a lot of bombings, and he was trying to disprove the church, and and in the process, he was forging documents, um, and it was trying to disprove the church. And I guess there were such good forgeries that the church was buying them for millions. And the church has this big vault in Utah, up in the mountains, which is sealed better than Fort Knox or the White House. It's harder to get into that vault than any of those. It's probably one of the toughest safes or toughest vaults to get into. That they sealed them up in there. Um, these documents, and there were forgeries that this guy committed. You know, there many other break off groups of the church that could try to disprove the church, and there were other things in history that happened. Uh, there are a couple of actually, I found a couple of card. There were videos on YouTube made by ex members, early ex-members, and they were, kind of talking about how the church came about. It has a little cartoon in it, and sure enough, it was amazing, some of the stuff you find out and some of the things you see in there. And a friend of mine, and he was also a member of LGBTQIA family, he told me that there was something between the church and Coke, the Coca-Cola company. And it was funny because there was something in the video that just kind of threw an Easter egg about it in there. But I had never heard anything about it, and haven't. That's the only one I haven't been able to find that they used to have something against each other. I think it had to do with the sugar, but I think eventually they resolved the conflict because it meant more money. But um, that was a pretty interesting video to watch. And all this time, I was so programmed into the believing um, that the church was true, that all these videos to me that could prove that it wasn't, or there was something wrong with the church. To me, I just kept saying, well, I was put these here as an obstacle, wanting me to stray away from the faith. And and then I would say, yeah, now it's making my testimony stronger because I'm finding that, those aren't true, but my faith, and that those are only reinforcing my faith. That's how programmed I was. Now I can see where some of them, yeah, some of them may exaggerated, some of them, were correct, and that there were a lot of church cover-ups. And the more you look into it, the more there is. And there's a one ritual that goes on in the temple, and only which is like the guaranteed golden ticket to what they call the celestial kingdom, which is heaven. But the heaven, in there's three levels of what they call glory. Kind of, in most other religions you have, hell, purgatory, and heaven. Well, in this one you have what they call the celestial, terrestrial, and the celestial kingdom. And the celestial kingdom has its own three levels. So there's one ceremony that goes on in the temple that many people don't know about, and I just found out about. I had heard of it, but I didn't know the exact things about it. And if you receive that ritual, you get your golden ticket to the highest level of the highest level, which is the third level of the celestial kingdom. So I mean, there are just so many things out there that you learn more and more each day as you investigate it. Um, it's hard right now, kind of, as I'm ad libbing this. It's there's so many things that I've found out lately, and it's just it's amazing. Yes, you're right, Lena. There is a lot of um, no, you're catching on really quick. There are many things they make you feel like you have to earn. So, for example, when you get baptized, obviously, I said, you have to take lessons and then agree to getting baptized. And then after that, obviously, like I said, and for whoever's watching this, I am a male to female transgender woman. And at that time, I was male. So within time, they said, well, we want you to receive the priesthood. So let's do a quick little interview with the bishop. Um, so they interview me and they give me the lower priesthood. And then it took years, and eventually I received the higher priesthood. Um, and The lower priesthood could be, I think, young men at age 12 can get it, and they can do it to bless the sacrament and which is the bread and water, and hand it out. But and then there's other little ordinances you can do with the lower priesthood, the Aaronic priesthood, as they called it. Then when you get older, you earn what's called the Melchizedek priesthood, and that's at the point where you become an elder. And when you become an elder, you go to what's elders quorum, which is pretty much like a boys club, really. There, um, when you go into elders quorum, you go in, everybody's just talking, and it's like it's a big hangout. Then they kind of call it to order. You do a song, someone does a opening prayer, talk about news in the ward, and then everybody separates to do different lessons depending on what uh, level of priesthood you're at. You go to different classrooms. It's like you have, and then at certain ages you can. So like you're either in the elders quorum, and when you're in the Melchizedek priesthood, you were either an elders quorum or a high priest. So even within each level, there was levels. It was always more to earn, and a lot of things had to do about how much time you could invest. They say there's no paid clergy. Higher levels, like people that work over in Salt Lake, the people that are like the prophet, the quorum of the 12, they're paid. But they say everything that you put into it, you get paid back in blessings. I've known people to invest money in like doing camping trips with the young men, young women, and they don't get. It's hard for them to get any, refund from the church, even with receipts. So, and with them being a $250 billion organization, uh, there's a lot, to break down all this, because it'll take, like I said, I can break one down and kind of give the history of it. I'm going to have to do a little research on that, because I'm not, a big historian. I was actually the historian of my ward for a while. In other words, that was for different events that we did. But, I can break it down a little more. But watching some of the other channels, like I said, are really good. Yes, Lena. So that's my plan. I do want to do more live streams about it. Hopefully, we can get more people in. I know it was kind of a spontaneous thing again today. Plus, it is Thursday night. I keep thinking it's Friday because it is my Friday. Because I get the next 3 days off. So that's awesome. I love it. Tomorrow, I think my plan, I'm going to try to go over to the Trans Resource Center, just kind of check it out for a couple hours, see what they do there. It's just a place to, I don't know, to meet people within the community. Yeah, I know. I mean, it took my channel time to build traction, and it still is. I think right now let's see, let me click over there. I think this, yeah, right now we're at 120 subs. It's slowly growing. I remember for a long time my goal was at 51. Now we've done the second goal of 102. I just haven't gotten the address to send the second giveaway to. think I've already got the stuff for the third, which will be, I think I'm gonna make it at 2:55. Um, and I think I'm starting to figure out for when I can start doing merch. I think I've almost got a t-shirt design figured out. Um, I think that would be cool. I think we'll do t-shirts first. Hello, welcome to the stream. I see some people have joined us here. Um, there they go again. They probably didn't like me drinking my tea. Maybe it was people from the church. Because it was just you, and then two more jumped on. Maybe it was two missionaries. They always come in twos. They always have to, and it's the Marco Polo rule. You can't your companion, as they call it, should always be able to hear you or be within the line of sight. Did I get you? I know. I tell you, it's the tea, isn't it? It's evil. And it's funny because a lot of people ask the question, why tea and coffee? Why no coffee or tea? And they're all, is it the caffeine? And I was a big Mountain Dew drinker, which I still am, as you have seen. And they're all not, and they told me, no, it's coffee and tea, because that's how I was taught. It was coffee and tea. And they said it was, when I finally tried to clarify it with someone, they're all, well, coffee and tea contain tannic acid. And tannic acid is actually used to tan the hides of animals. So it can cause a lot of damage to your insides. So they call it the word of wisdom or the Lord's law of health, which they do. I mean, some of it sounds pretty good. They say no illicit drug use, no alcohol. Let's see, no coffee or tea, and no tobacco. Now they did, like, when you read it a little more into it, it does talk. And what the gentleman that baptized me and actually pretty much dunked me in the water, what he said at one point, because and then when I read the Word of Wisdom incomplete, is it has a lot to do with moderation. Because when you start talking, when you go in there and read about the Word of Wisdom, it does say something about that the animals, in the fowls of the air were placed on here for the use of man, but it does state about moderation. And I understood his point, because he told me, he's all, I love pizza. He goes, but it's not like I should order 2 pizzas and eat those 2 pizzas at night. He goes, no, yes, I can order a pizza for my family, he said, and then, we eat what's a moderate amount. So yes, that's another thing that this law of health teaches. And yes, Lena, it is a lot about control. Yes, or I love calling you Mystic Mama. I love that part of your name there. And there's several lessons when they'll bring it up about biblical teachings, and you'll hear it in biblical teachings about murmuring, which means gossiping. And oh boy, if I have ever seen the worst gossipers ever, it is it is them. They, if, for example, one of the biggest things that can happen. So say I was caught drinking my tea, okay, and someone will walk over to a bishop's office and say, you know what, I saw Sister right, Sister Del Sol drinking um, some tea the other day. So then the bishop will call you into the office and, so Sister Del Sol, is there something you need to tell me? And eventually he'll find a way to, I heard, something about you the other day, um, finally you have to you confess to him or tell him the truth. Yes, I drank some iced tea. So, well, okay, he'll say uh, like in Catholic, if you sin, they'll tell you go say 10 Hail Marys and Our Father. With them, what they'll say, okay, what'll happen for the next month, so for the next 4 weeks, on Sunday, you can't take the sacrament. So that means you can't take the bread or the water. So what happens is when they hand the bread out, they hand it out on a little tray. So you have to take a piece of bread off the tray, eat it, and then hand it over to the next person. Well, this always becomes a topic of conversation is when you don't take when you just take the tray and hand it over to the next person, you don't take a slice of bread. People notice that. And then it just becomes topic of conversation and they start wondering why why didn't she take it? And murmuring, talking bad about someone, talking behind their backs is probably just as bad as drinking that iced tea, if not worse. And yes, it comes down to a lot of control because you'd be surprised what some people um, will get called into the church to the bishop's office about, and one gets higher level of punishment than the other, and it's just they play favorites with certain people, and sometimes it has to do, like I said, there is a lot to do about money. Um, like I said, the recent ritual I found out about, I hear it only really includes a lot of people that are higher tiered, uh, you know, paying lots of tithing. Um, so it's just um, and even some of the people that I watch that are ex Mormons on YouTube, like we've been talking. Um, there's not much, they've brought in some people that have received what they call the second anointing, and there's it's still very with listening to what they say that happens during it. Even me hearing it, the explanation is still not very clear to me on what it is, but most of them have said that yeah, it takes someone with lots of money um, to get it, and um, yes, it is a lot. And you'd be surprised. I'll tell you some of as far as like the men, some of them are really placed on a higher pedestal. Um, there's one that he came back from his mission from the very beginning. I could tell there was something about him. He was kind of, I would say, cocky and very high on himself. But we had the callings, all of us, to the same presidency, and he just thought himself as And he had a very nice girlfriend. He married her, but oh boy, whenever he was around other women, he just thought highly of himself. And um, I have other sources that have worked with him, and with him being holier than thou, have verified with me that, and can tell me as witnesses that how much he cheated on his beautiful wife. And she wasn't just beautiful; she was like the nicest person. Um, she when my daughter went to was going to church, who's also left. She was the young women's president, and she would go to my daughter's softball games, swim meets, everything just to see her because she cared about her so much. It was amazing. So she was an amazing lady, and she is. I could see. I remember at one point I could see that she was trying to be a little rough from the church because not many. She was like the first one I noticed mm, as far as people in the ward that dyed her hair purple. I found that amazing. I was like, that was gutsy. But I think she wanted to stand out a little more. And then she started wearing earrings like this, nice big hoops. Uh, totally different than when I met her. She was so conservative and everything. And she opened right up all of a sudden. And I mean, she was very attractive when I first met her and quiet. But later on, when she started letting herself come out of her shell and really do herself up, oh boy. Which, like I said, she was one of the ones that if we would to talk, like I did say, um, they fought, like we talked about how, this can be like cold or high demand group. Um, like, and I said MLMs can be like a high demand group or cult also. If you look at the state of Utah, which is a very Mormon area, it is one of the areas with the highest concentrations of people in MLMs, and also that are owned by members of or founded by members of the church. Um, Many of the women in the church were all one downline, and to makeup company called Unique, um, and uh, it was founded by a Mormon, um, and it all, and they would that one started selling it, and then they started going to her downline, and they all kind of kept branching off. But see, it all comes down to like same way the church is. It's got its downline. You got the person that's the head of it, that's the prophet, got his counselors, then you got what they call the 12 apostles and the quorum of the 70, and then the local leaders. There's a lot to it. Um, there, so it's like a downline. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Um, when I joined the church, they claimed there was 10 million members. Um, and last I'd heard 14, but they say when you come down and if you were to look at active people, that's the big thing is they never give a number of how many are active. Someone said that they would probably come down to like 6, to like half the amount, if not even less. I think Berlin was saying that. Um, and that a lot of buildings are starting to have to close congregations. And I mean, they put money into their buildings. and that right now there's a big initiative to build more temples throughout the world, at least 200 more. That'll triple the number of temples throughout the world, and they're putting some in some areas where you don't even have enough members to probably uh, staff one. They'll probably send some because you can do your mission in your you know as a young man. You can start at age 18 now to about age 24, which I remember I joined at age 24, and they wanted to send me off right away for 2 years. They were trying to get me to go, but I just found out what the cost of one was. I didn't even have that money to think about even going. Um, Most people that go on a mission, they, start working as soon as they can, um, save money. I know when I was a manager at SeaWorld, I had one girl that worked for me there, and she would save all her paychecks, and that's all it went to was a fund for her mission. I still spoken to her, and she had a pretty good experiences on her mission. She's an original. She's a very outgoing person, but um, it's her mission was adventurous, to say the least. She went to Chile. And Lena, well, I pretty much figured that Alice wouldn't be here today because I think she was going to go out of town, or I don't know if she's prepping her car or what. Um, but it's just been us. I was just checking my account as far as YouTube kind of keeps the YouTube Studio can tell you in the last 48 hours how many views you've gotten, all that. I was just kind of gauging that, but things have been going better. I'm loving how the channel's growing. Hopefully, this can get a different audience. The thing is, another thing that kind of links my channel. I link my channel to a lot about the church. Like I said, there was a point in time when I was still in California, living in California. I moved from California to Florida, now to New Mexico. And California was going to pass, I believe it was Prop 8. It had to do that. It was an anti gay marriage bill. Basically, they wanted to add like 14 words to the California law, and that would say that. And this was back. Oh boy, I moved. It's had to be in the late '90s when they did this. Probably like 1999 or even just early 2000. And they wanted to make it just basically state that marriage is only to be between a man and a woman. And since I was a member of the church at the time, um, I remember, and they always state that at church you don't bring up politics. One of the big things I remember right at the pulpit, the bishop and his counselors, every time during the week, oh yeah, remember we're gonna meet XYZ day here at the church building. We're gonna put signs together so we can go hand them out for people's lawns to um, so Prop 8 will pass, and they will add these words about marriage only being um, between a man and a woman. I remember actually um, having at that time you were so programmed to believe in what the church believed that you would do it. come to find out, years later, what happens? I come out. First thing I came out was at that time I found myself. I said bisexual. I was still kind of exploring myself, and as you know, I started finding more of my inner self and figured out, yes, I'm a woman, and found out I was transgender, and I started cross dressing, and then I started transitioning, and here I am. And so uh, then, you know, to know that back then I was programmed to think a certain way against our community, it's horrible. I don't I don't want to say I feel guilty. I do feel guilty, but yet I know I was programmed. So, you know, it's kind of conflicting within me, but I can kind of forgive myself because, yes, once again, it was just something that you were taught by that church, and that's the way you believed, and you had to follow what they did. And it was just, and then eventually the Supreme Court overturned it, so you know that's good. Um, I mean, right now, if they were to find out about my transition, or they, I would probably be excommunicated. But I might as well just turn in the letter of resignations, just call it quits, I haven't been going in about 2 3 years now, so that's what I'm going to do. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the stream. It is a little quiet in here today. Um, I was going to plan the stream for about 2.5 hours. Today we are talking about being in a high demand religion, or even if you would want to call it, that's another uh, description of what can be also be a cult. So if you are ever in one and would like to speak about, put any comments about it, talk about it. I have been speaking about my experience in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. At the beginning, I kind of gave a little rundown, of of how I got in. I'll probably do a video kind of explaining it, in general, again, for review. So, uh, others can see it. Also, then I'm going to do a series of videos and probably a series of live streams where we can talk about other, about high demand religions, and all of you can share as you join in. And I'm going to talk about my experience. I'm also going to do a series of videos. And I know I've seen many of people break down the church with what they call the bite model. It is a tool to kind of recognize whether a group you're in may be a cult. And it just doesn't have to be a religion or a faith. It could be like MLMs, it can be certain businesses, political parties, many, many things. So we'll talk about the bite model. We'll take it and break it down one video at a time. And I'm going to do it from my perspective. So I know like many people have done the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints from their perspective. I'm going to do it from mine. So I think it'll be some good videos that we can explore, good live streams, and and let's break everything down for you, especially if you are investigating getting in, into the LDS Church. It might be a good idea not just to watch my video and my story, but go and watch some others that are out there. There are very, very, good uh, YouTubers out there that break down the church very, very well. Suggest Mormon Stories, John DeLynn. Another one is Nuance Ho with Kara Burrell. There's another one I watch, and uh, the name of her channel is called Exmo Lex, who's very good. Um, and Alyssa Grenfell. I think all of them are great, great. And Cults to Consciousness, all of them. And yes, my Lena Mystic Mama here reminded me also Amanda Ray, but she was in a different um, cult, but she explains things very, very differently. She was actually in a breakoff cult of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Um, just to be a little general, the church started in the 1800s. Um, and when it started, the president of the church did start seeking out more wives. Um, but it just like a little quick breakdown. Eventually, after he was killed, and there was a lot of push because Utah wanted to become a state, and when Utah wanted to become a state, the U.S. wasn't allowing obviously polygamy, um, but so basically what Utah did was outlaw it. So um, the president of the church at that time, his name was Wilford Woodruff, wrote what they call a manifesto, which uh, which banned polygamy in the church. Now, at that time, there were many people that questioned that. Therefore, they broke off and formed other similar groups and continued with the practice of polygamy. So that's why you'll hear about what they call the FLDS, which is the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. There is a reorganized uh, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which now calls itself the Community of Christ. They are not polygamous, but they do own certain lands that they were able to take away from the church. And then, as Mystic Mama here was pointing out, was Amanda Ray. She belonged to one called the Order, and the Order was a break off of the church and was a polygamous cult, and a very dangerous one at that. She's another great YouTuber about it. And there's another one called, I don't know if I mentioned, Cults to Consciousness. Another great YouTuber. I love them all. They all have to do with, kind of intertwined with what I'm talking about today. So I would say check out their channels. They can, really, really teach you a lot more than what I'm saying. One, I was a convert to the church, and I grew stronger at times, yet my faith was probably from the beginning wasn't the strongest. I started following some rules, and then I would break off and kind of slack off. And that's one of the biggest things is, but yes, I was in Lena Mystic Mama here, one of my good friends on here, does state, because I was telling her, being that I am a transgender woman, back in early 2000s, late 90s, in California, the church did a big push to ban gay marriage, and they always say at church, don't bring your politics into it. They were big on. We were meeting at the church building, putting together signs to go put on people's lawns, for, I believe, a yes on Prop 8 that would ban gay marriage in California. Um, and I totally remember going out and giving signs out. And now look at me, I am a proud member of the LGBTQIA community family. Um, and, now working on writing my letter of resignation to the church. I do have to get it notarized, sent to Salt Lake. Uh, Lena here had a very good point. There's so many hoops to jump through in every part of this religion, or faith, whatever you want to call it. And that's why it is a high demand religion, or even when we get into it more, you'll see that there are things that, are cultish. Um, if not, I would say it is a cult. Who are you saying is doing a great job representing here on YouTube as well, Lena? Thank you. Um, it, when I don't try to script my videos. Some of them I will. You know, um, I don't like to script them because I like kind of talk off the cuff. I mean, some of the ones as I go and do the series of videos, I uh, will have to uh, script them because I'm gonna have to do some research on them. I know some of the research will, you know, I'll probably go and look at some of these other videos, but I'm going to have to look up the pipe model and all the questions to it so I can answer them in my format. I will probably do those in video form so I can, put the question up, up here and just kind of like what my answer to each part of it would be and basically how to score it. I don't know if it has a scoring system or what. Um, yeah, I bet you with just the way I have my outlook nowadays, and just in this little time, I can tell you, um, yeah, it is a cult. And definitely a high demand religion. I I used to have when I had certain callings, I had to spend 3 days a week in church after work. Plus, I worked a high demand job too. I've always been a nurse, so or even when I worked EMS, that was sometimes I would have a 24-hour shift, and have to go do something at church on my day off. Sometimes when you do that 24 and you do calls every hour, you're tired the next day. Yes, Lena, that is a big thing. I welcome everybody to ask open-ended questions. I'm willing to answer all appropriate questions. Not anything inappropriate. Um, if they are, I'm always open to constructive criticism, but anything that's destructive or insulting, uh, I will read it, and if I have to block the person, I will block them. I'm not, but um, I'm open to everybody here on my channel. My channel is, and I don't think I mentioned this at the beginning. My channel is about, um, as you can see, my channel is called Jules Treasures. Treasures are, my name's Jules. Treasures are my subscribers, and anybody that's in my channel at this time can be a treasure. And also, the 5 T's from the area 5T1, which means transition, as I am a transgender woman, uh, triathlon training, trans tips, and that was it. And yeah, exactly. We don't need trolls. Sorry, I keep getting what sounds like a text message, and they're just like either emails coming in or uh, a Snapchat or something like that. Um, but basically, this is just my first in a series of live streams and videos where we are going to talk about, uh, anytime and whether, even if it's a different high demand religion, you can feel free to come in and talk about it. Um, and and give your experience. I can actually, if you ever want to talk about it, and you want to tell your story, we can. I have a different streaming app, and we can go do a face-to-face live stream, talk about our experiences, um, and talk, there in general. Um, like I said earlier on my live stream, I did grow up Catholic. I went to Catholic school. Um, went to, I would, my parents would take me to church every Sunday, but um, I'll tell you that's not a high demand um, religion. Really, it's like a Sunday religion. I'll call it. Yes, people may be faithful to it, but um, you know, if you go on Sunday, you kind of go for that hour, you go home and do your thing. With the Mormon Church, I discovered, yes, it's 3 hours on Sunday. If you have a calling with the Young Men, Young Women's organization, it is like 2 hours on Wednesday. Then they want you to do your days should consist of waking up, having family prayer with your family, a prayer at every meal, do your daily scripture study, do your personal prayer. Also, Monday evenings should consist of what they call family home evening. Um, and and then if you're a gentleman in the church, you receive the priesthood and you're an elders quorum, you'd go do your home teaching, as they used to call it, so that you would be giving a list of members. You had to go check on them monthly to make sure they were okay, especially if they were falling away. You would go check on them, make sure, hey, are you okay? Do you guys need anything? And you guys okay on food and everything? So if they were like short on food, then you can pass them on to the Relief Society president. They can help them with that, and but it's a lot of baiting back to the church. Um, a lot of it will keep you there. I will tell you though, that is one positive thing I did find when it came to families that were in need, because some parent had lost their job and they didn't have a job, or didn't have enough to make it by. The church had its own welfare system. The church actually bought farms, would grow its own uh, grains, food, and make their own food, had their own canneries, have cattle ranches for meat, and milk, and they absolutely canned stuff. And they would have, in the larger cities, like here in Albuquerque, they may have one. They would, have this huge uh, supermarket, and basically you would get a voucher, and they would say like how many members to your family, um, and then you go in there, and it allows you to take so much of each type of food, and it's amazing how much of food. At one point, we did have to use it, and there was 4 of us in the family. You could never run out of food. when you were getting food from the church. But and it was good, even though it was all branded with by Deseret. It was actually pretty good. Actually, their spaghetti sauce was excellent, better than ragu or prego. It was probably one of the better ones. I threw a little bit of garlic salt in it, and it gave it great flavor. I mean, they were excellent at taking care of the members when it came to that. Also, like the next thing that they would pay would be your electric bill or your water bill, and then move on from there. Yeah, Lena, that might be cool. If I start finding someone that would want to um, interview others, if anybody out there comes across this video and you're a member of a high demand religion, um, feel free to send me a message in the comments down below. Also, remember to just hit a subscribe if you're not a member. And we can talk about our different religions and what they were like. I think it would be cool. We could just break them down. So you're saying the love bombing by the church? I would love, I mean, we could even get like a panel of different people from different faiths that, feel this way as the series goes. If you come by here and you get to this part, and I'll even do a small video on that, Lena, actually thinking about it. After the stream, I'll do a video and I'll kind of see if any other people um, want to come on, and maybe we could do a small panel of people talking about different high demand religions, and that want to get together and talk. That could probably be a pretty good, just like how Cola Berry and were you on the video with Cola Berry and I talking to each other? I think that would be really, really cool. Um, yes, I think I'm going to post that video up tonight. I'm going to post the video, kind of like a little invite for people of other um, high demand religions. The panel can be up to, I think the channel will allow up to about 10 people. So, I think I can do up to 10 people on the stream. It would be a cool, I would do it through StreamYard. I think that would be cool. It's been a pretty good one between me and you, Lena. There's another person in here that they've been quiet. I don't know if I can see them.